Guys, a rumor has been gaining traction over the last 24 hours. We are talking about the enigmatic, highly anticipated character known simply as Z. A massive secret just leaked indicating that Z might not be comfortably sitting behind a luxurious desk in Geneva after all. Instead, he might be bringing an absolute war directly to the front doors of the estate. Everyone assumes that the current trajectory of the narrative is straightforward and somewhat predictable. Most viewers believe that Carly and Lucas will successfully execute their stealthy, desperate break-in. The general consensus is that we will watch them sneak through the damp, dark corridors, evade the heavily armed guards, and somehow manage to pull Josslyn out of her terrifying captivity right under the nose of a distracted Ross. The obvious explanation seems to be that Ross will either narrowly escape into the foggy night with the highly coveted stolen cold fusion research, or he will face a standard dramatic arrest by the local authorities just as he tries to board a speedboat. Furthermore, the audience has been completely conditioned to believe that Jason is entirely out of the picture. Most viewers are convinced that Jason is currently locked away in a dark, off-the-books intelligence black site indefinitely, having stoically taken the fall for the shocking crime committed by young Rocco. We have all been led to think that this dangerous rescue mission rests entirely on the fragile shoulders of a desperate mother and her fiercely loyal brother. What if we're looking at this the wrong way? What if that wasn't the real reason for all this meticulous, agonizing buildup? What if the standard heroic family rescue narrative is nothing but a clever smokescreen for a much larger, much darker, and far more lethal operation? Let us build a different picture of what might actually be happening behind the scenes. According to this newly surfaced speculation, the moment Ross discovers Carly and Lucas creeping through the shadows of the estate, he does not just engage in a typical villainous monologue or call for backup to detain them. He strikes with lethal, unhinged precision. The rumor mill suggests a brutal, heartbreaking, and incredibly violent confrontation where Carly and Lucas are severely, perhaps mortally wounded. Imagine the sheer terror of that scene. Carly bleeding out on the cold stone floor, Lucas completely incapacitated despite his medical knowledge, and Josslyn forced to watch her beloved family be systematically destroyed by a rogue, merciless agent. It is a scenario of absolute despair and hopelessness. But right when all hope is seemingly extinguished and Ross prepares to deliver the final, fatal blow to our beloved characters, the heavy wooden doors of the Grand Hall are blown wide open. Z does not just send a generic extraction team. He leads a highly specialized, heavily armed tactical raid himself. And the insider buzz gets even crazier right here. The man standing shoulder to shoulder with Z in the smoke and debris of this raid is none other than Jason. There may be more going on here than a simple, last-minute rescue. Let us break down the possibilities of how this mind-blowing scenario could actually unfold. The first possibility is that Z intentionally and meticulously orchestrated Jason's extraction from that heavily guarded black site because he desperately needed the ultimate, unstoppable enforcer to eliminate a severe rogue threat. Think about the logistics of this theory. Z knows perfectly well that Ross is highly trained, incredibly dangerous, and completely unhinged by his obsession with the cold fusion technology. Who better to lead a surgical lethal strike than Jason? In this scenario, Z uses his supreme unchecked bureaucratic authority to secretly pardon Jason, pulling him out of his dark cell and handing him a weapon with one simple, undeniable directive. Go to the island, save your family, and put Ross in the ground permanently. This completely changes the narrative from a desperate, amateur family rescue to a highly sanctioned, covert assassination mission led by a man who has absolutely everything to lose if Josslyn is harmed. That's one possibility. But another theory is that Valentine is actually the hidden mastermind orchestrating this entire unholy alliance from the shadows of Europe. We all know Valentine fled across the globe to Geneva to meet directly with Z, fully expecting to be thrown into a miserable cell for the rest of his life. What if, instead of being imprisoned, Valentine negotiated the deal of a lifetime? The second possibility suggests that Valentine convinced Z that the only way to truly stop Ross and secure the dangerous prototype was to utilize the one man Ross would never see coming, Jason. We could see a mind-blowing cinematic moment where Valentine arrives at the island right alongside Jason and Z. Instead of the bitter, blood-soaked rivalry we are so used to seeing between Valentine and Jason, they are forced by circumstance to fight on the exact same side. Imagine the visual of Valentine choosing to risk his own life to protect Carly, Lucas, and Josslyn, standing back to back with Jason as they unleash absolute hell on Ross and his mercenaries. It is a behind-the-scenes possibility that would completely redeem Valentine while delivering the most epic, unforgettable action sequence this show has seen in a decade. I keep wondering whether the situation is being manipulated on an even grander, much more sinister scale. The third possibility shifts the focus entirely onto the mysterious and potentially ruthless hidden agenda of Z. What if Z intentionally allowed Carly and Lucas to walk right into a deadly trap? If Z knew that Ross was heavily armed, paranoid, and waiting for an incursion, he might have deliberately delayed his tactical raid just enough to let Ross violently implicate himself in the attempted murder of unarmed civilians. By coldly letting Carly and Lucas get severely injured, Z creates the perfect, undeniable, and legally bulletproof justification to authorize extreme lethal force against a former agent. In this terrifying scenario, Jason and Valentine are nothing more than highly effective pawns in Z's cold, calculated game of international chess. The three of them corner Ross in the Grand Hall, cutting off every single escape route. There is no dramatic trial. There is no reading of rights or a peaceful arrest. Ross meets a violent, definitive, and bloody end right there on the cold stone floors, taking every single secret about the Cold Fusion Project and his rogue intelligence faction directly to the grave. It is a ruthless, dark speculation, but it fits perfectly with the shadowy, morally bankrupt world of international espionage that Z operates within. Now, let us venture into the absolute darkest territory of this massive leak. If you ask me, there is one unconfirmed piece of information attached to this rumor that is truly haunting and will leave a lasting scar on the audience. What if Z clearing Jason's name and letting him finally reunite with his loved ones is not an act of bureaucratic mercy at all? The most dangerous possibility is that a chilling, unspoken exchange, a life for a life, was made in the shadows of Geneva. We are hearing intense whispers that after the dust finally settles, the gunfire stops, and Ross is confirmed dead, Z quickly departs the island to avoid the local authorities. But he does not leave alone. He takes Valentine with him into the night. Everyone watching might initially assume that Valentine is finally being hauled off to a legitimate high-security prison to pay for his extensive crimes. But what if Z is actually recruiting him by force? What if Valentine is heavily coerced into becoming Z's new ghost, a permanent, off-the-books, deeply buried operative who can never, ever return to his precious daughter or the life he once knew? Jason gets his ultimate freedom, his name completely cleared of the crime Rocco actually committed, and he gets to share a beautiful, tearful reunion with a recovering Carly, Lucas, and Josslyn. But the devastating cost of that happy ending is Valentine vanishing into the endless abyss of the intelligence world forever. It is an ending that gives us the triumphant, heroic return of our favorite enforcer, but leaves a chilling, unresolved, and heartbreaking void where Valentine used to be. The ultimate sacrifice made not with blood, but with absolute erasure. Something about this feels hidden, incredibly heavily guarded by the writers and producers behind the scenes. We are actively piecing together these wild rumors, closely examining the trajectory of Z's sudden arrival, Jason's supposed imprisonment, Valentine's desperate flight, and the impending, inevitable doom of Ross. Could the climax on the island play out exactly like this blood-soaked tactical raid? Absolutely. The pieces are all perfectly aligned for a massive explosion of violence. Could the writers suddenly pivot at the last second and give us a completely different, perhaps more traditional resolution? That is always on the table in this genre. But one thing is for absolute certain. The delicate, terrifying dynamic on that island is about to explode in a way that leaves permanent, unhealable scars on everyone involved. We might see beloved heroes fall to the ground, irredeemable villains executed without mercy, and new, terrifying alliances forged in the darkest shadows. It might be entirely true. It might be a brilliant misdirection, but there is definitely a massive piece of this puzzle that remains untold. Keep your eyes peeled, because the truth is about to bleed out.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.